I'm Mark Boris, and this is Straight Talk.
Peter Boll.
Hey, how you
Welcome
doing?
to Straight Talk, mate. You leave a war-torn Sudan, you go to live in Egypt, you end up in Toowoomba, then you go to Perth, and you're representing your country, nominated to be Australian of the Year, and then you just get whack.
Yeah.
How do you pick yourself up?
It's such accusation, you're just not you on your own now. It's like, if you're not on the right mindset, it could destroy you. I had no English at all moving to Australia. You find out pretty quickly that you're the odd one out. And now you're in this race to kind of adapt. And everyone was shocked, like, wow, like you really have a talent for this, and I think you should do it outside of school. And I just said, I don't really want to run. It's not my passion.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah, it was just not my thing. It wasn't until, again, I kept losing and coming second. I was pretty competitive. Like, I want to win.
It sounds like you're good at every bloody thing, but don't tell me you're a great swimmer too.
No.
Peter Boll.
Hey, how you
Welcome
doing?
to Straight Talk, mate.
No, thank you for having me. I've been wanting to come here for a while.
That's
so
pretty cool.
It's good to be here.
First of all, tell me what your actual first name is. Like, it's not Peter.
Yeah, I think that's a great start. My first name is Nejmuddin.
Negmadin.
Nejmuddin.
Does it mean something?
Yeah, so Nejma in Arabic is my first language. Nejma is a star.
Yeah.
And then din is religion, actually, interestingly, yeah.
Okay, and your religion, you're Muslim, is
Muslim, that's
Islamic religion, yeah?
Yeah.
And because what I got confused about is how you got Peter in there, because Peter's a Christian name. And did your parents name you Peter, or did they call you something completely different?
No, they actually call me something completely different. My parents actually never called me Peter or Nejmuddin. They called me Tia, which is a nickname they gave me when I was a little baby back home, and they kept that forever.
Does it mean something?
It's one of my relatives' name, so they just named me after them.
Okay, so how'd you get Peter?
When I moved here, we kind of just selected a different name.
Yeah, my man
yeah.
was like that when he came to Australia.
Because no one could really pronounce their name. And
Yeah, that's
and all
and that's a bit of a thing. I mean, for people who migrate to this country from a different language or a different culture and language, first thing you want to do is try and fit in.
Yeah.
And you would have been how old were you when you came here?
I was 10 years old when I first touched down in Australia.
So were you like cognizant of the fact that your name was not, when you went to school here, was you cognizant of the fact that your name was not not like everyone else in the class's name? And was it you who said, I might call myself Peter, or your parents?
Yeah. It was. I think I don't even remember. It was such a long time ago, but yeah, I think it was me. It was pretty hard. And interestingly, all my brothers' names are kind of similar. So I've got 4 brothers, and one is Shamsuddin, one is Maheddin, and one is Bedruddin, and one is Izzuddin. So we all have the din in it, and super Arabic names. And when you come here, you realize like everyone's names are kind of different, and no one can pronounce your name. It's like a struggle. So actually, in reflection, I wish I kind of just went with my last name, just Boll, which is a lot easier to say and pronounce.
And make that your first name.
Make that. Oh, well.
Hey, Boll.
Boll.
Yeah. Boll. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah. But Peter sort of makes sense. I don't know why you chose Peter, but maybe there was someone that you met that called you, because I remember my father told me a story that when his youngest brother came to Australia, his name was Athanasius or Thanasos. But the guy at the, the immigration, couldn't pronounce it because it's obviously written in Greek. And he said, we'll call you Arthur. And now he's Arthur. Because it sounds the same, and my family just stuck with it. And now he's Uncle Arthur, or Artie, which is like very Aussie, very, very Aussie. And similar to you, like he would have been about 10 when he came to Australia. And so Australianized is ridiculous. So I'm going to ask you about that. So how much of growing up pre-coming to Australia do you think form part of who Peter Boll is today, like pre-Australia?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's really hard to break up because we've kind of shifted from different places and different cultures. I was born in Sudan, in Khartoum, and that's the Sudanese and South Sudanese culture. My dad's South Sudanese. And
tell me about that. Most audiences wouldn't know much about that culture.
Yeah, so my dad's South Sudanese, so that's where the bowl comes from.
Right.
And my mum is from a Nuba tribe in the North Sudan, and that's where the Arabic part comes from, Najmuddin.
Is there much difference between
Yeah,
them?
heaps of difference. South Sudan, different religion, different languages. So my mum and dad actually speak 2 different languages. My dad speaks a tribal language called Denka, and my mum speaks her tribal language called Nuba. And growing up, we actually spoke Nuba with my mum because we grew up with my mum's side of the family. Never actually spoke my dad's language because he was kind of that odd one out. Growing up with my mum has so many siblings and brothers and family, and that's who we're around. And then the national language in Sudan is Arabic, so I think we just stuck to that because it was just a lot easier.
Did your dad speak Arabic?
Yeah, my dad speaks Arabic.
So that was a common language in the family.
That's the common language,
Arabic.
yeah.
But if you wanted to have a crack at dad, you spoke your mum's village language.
But I've actually completely forgot my mum's village language.
Oh, really?
Now. Yeah.
No, dude.
We were so little. I mean, I left Sudan when I was 6 years old. And when we met to Egypt is the primary, Arabic is the primary language in Egypt. And you just stuck to that, and that's all you spoke, and you spoke at home. So that became the primary language as well.
Arab, you still speak Arabic?
I still speak Arabic.
Like fluent, read, write?
I can only read now. I've kind of lost the reading and writing, so I can only speak it fluently.
Yeah, you speak, but do you speak it still at home with your mum and your dad?
Yeah.
And your brothers?
Yeah, I speak it. No, I don't actually speak to my brothers. I only speak it to my parents.
Wow.
Yeah, and friends.
Yeah. It's funny, like when you're, I mean, I'm a first generation, so I don't know other than what my dad said and what I experienced watching my dad. But it'd be interesting to hear from someone who actually is an immigrant who came here, before they became a teenager. How do you feel when you arrive in a country like Australia? Do you remember maybe the first time at school, everyone's speaking a different language? Did you have English? Any English at that stage?
No, I had no English at all moving to Australia. But interestingly, every time I reflect on it, I think it was a lot easier because as a 10-year-old, you tend to pick up things pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you go to school, and I think the advantage I had on my side is I had 4 brothers, and we all end up similar in the same school. So you have something familiar there. You can go catch up with your brothers during recess and lunch and whatnot. But you find out pretty quickly that you're the odd one out. And if you can't understand the language, every single class becomes really difficult to go to, and you just get nervous going to every single class. The only class that kind of made sense was sports. Yeah. Because you pick it up really quickly and it's universal. But and then you find out on top of the language, the culture is completely different too. We had a completely different culture back home, and now you're in this race to kind of adapt. And while you're in this race to adapt, you're also in the race trying to learn the language. And then the conflicting part, I think, was that the people that you looked up to, which is, I think, the head of the house, which is your parents, they don't get to experience that. So they remain their culture the whole way because they come here pretty old, don't go to school, and don't have many Australian friends, and they stay around the community. So you go to school and you're trying to adapt to everything, and then you come back home, back to your own culture, and then you have this conflicting side because you're going to school most of the day, you're spending time, and then over the years you start picking up Australian culture, and you're going back home. It's like, well, where does our culture kind of fit in the middle? And that's kind of, I think, was really challenging finding that, rather than everything else, finding the language and getting to know people and all that and making friends. I think was trying to find out where you fit in a different culture, and how much do you try to adapt to a new culture while maintaining your own sense of purpose and who you are.
When you first came to Australia, where'd you guys sort of settle down?
Toowoomba
in Queensland.
Wow. Yeah, in Queensland.
Oh my God! So, I mean, talk about especially 15 years ago, or more, 20 years ago now. Toowoomba is fairly Aussie.
Yeah.
Why Toowoomba? What the fuck? Why Toowoomba?
We never asked questions because we didn't know much of Australia.
But someone sent you there?
No, my dad actually had family in Toowoomba. And I think what happened around that time, there was a lot of migration through Toowoomba, and there was heaps of work to be done. I think there was a lot of field work, and heaps of Sudanese were moved there in Toowoomba back then. So there was actually a big Sudanese community back in Toowoomba around that time from 2000, 2004. We actually grew up with heaps of South Sudanese kids around.
It was like a community sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what did you guys leave behind in Sudan, and not so much in Egypt, but what did you leave behind in Sudan before you went to Egypt? Was it like a civil war? What was going on?
Yeah, there's. I mean, Sudan as we speak right now is still going through tension and civil war. Like my grandma's still there, and I think it's pretty hard for my mum at the moment because she wants to see her every time, but she can't go there. It's not safe to go there, and she's getting pretty old. So I think the story never really changed between that conflicts, civil wars, and stuff like that you have back there. So that's kind of why we left, and my dad just relocated us all to Egypt.
I mean, pardon my ignorance, but is it a religious war? What's going on? What's the war about?
Sudan's probably actually a Muslim country in the north anyway. So in 2011, they got the independence from South Sudan, obviously. And so it wasn't really about religion. It's all about power between I guess, the leaders and the people. It's been the same story for years.
And is it full on? Like, as in, like,
yeah,
people getting killed?
Yeah, it's full on. It's probably not televised as much, but it's pretty full on. It's been going for years.
Yeah, and I guess and I don't know very much about Sudan, but I guess it's not as publicly talked about because there's no oil there or something like that. There's probably nothing rich there. Like, even if it was Middle East or something like that, because of the oil, etc.,
it'd be talked about.
Everyone's talking about it, and everyone would be butting in and sort of putting the two bobs worth in. But is there much going on in Sudan? I mean, prior to this war, did you ever see it peaceful?
No, actually, sadly, no. But when I was at school, I think that was probably the most peaceful part of it. And you could go back to Sudan. So my family actually went back to Sudan a few times while we were at school. But ever since, it's kind of been on and off. And I think peaceful, it really depends. Like, it's been kind of corrupt for a while, but was it safe enough to go there? Yes, it was safe, but it still wasn't at the standard that you'd probably consider it safe enough. But if you were Sudanese and you knew people, you could go there and get away. But now it's completely unsafe to go.
And do you feel, is Peter Bowl, does he feel like he's more Sudanese or more Australian today? I mean, obviously a combination of both.
Obviously a combination of both. And interestingly enough, I spent more of my life in Australia than I did back home. But what made me is the culture and the personality that I got back from home. So it's almost like bang on in the middle. Like my heritage and my identity comes from having a South Sudanese father and a Sudanese mother, and that's who Peter Bowl is. And then obviously adopting to a new country and finding sport, finding the love for a new country. That's who I am now. So it's definitely both of them.
And from Toowoomba, where'd you end up?
From Toowoomba, I think we were 4 years there, and then we moved to Perth, so all the way on the other side.
Why Perth? Like, I mean, it's actually beautiful in Perth, but like, was it chasing work for your dad?
Yeah, my dad obviously didn't have education, and there wasn't much work in Toowoomba, so he kind of relocated us all to Perth.
And is your dad and or mum sports people?
No, they're not actually. But my dad, you can tell if he ever had the opportunity, he'd get pretty far. I think it's always about opportunity, and if he could have done it. I don't think he ever had that opportunity to do any sport. But I remember as a kid, we used to race, and he'd beat all of us. Like, he's strong. South Sudanese are really strong, powerful, and
describe it, because I don't know. So describe South Sudanese. You know what they're doing.
Yeah. So they actually don't look the way I look because they're a lot taller. I'm considered pretty short for South Sudanese. Average height is probably 6'1" now, 6'2". So
wow,
they're pretty tall. My dad's pretty tall. Really strong, really powerful.
Yeah, you mean in terms of physique?
Physique, yeah, really, really strong. So growing up, I used to look up to him a lot. He was just this big guy and athletic. So it was cool to see that. And then my brothers, and it's North Sudanese, my mom's side, the Nuba tribe, they're short. They're like really short. So it's completely different genetics, right? And it was always like, whose genetics are you going to get? And I think my brothers actually all got my dad's genetics, and I think my mom's height, which is kind of crazy because I actually consider myself the least athletic in the family.
You mean in terms of looking at?
In terms of physicality, and also in terms of talent.
Oh, really?
I remember a few stories. My little brother, who went to the same school as I did back in Perth, and obviously I came to school, broke all the records, and he'd just break them after me, and he didn't really train and do anything. So he was just naturally more gifted than I was, and he barely trained.
A different physique?
Yeah, he's taller and a bit stronger, yeah.
You know, we're talking about just, when you say, we're talking about running. or you
No,
high jumping,
he played
long jumping, everything?
He broke my high jump record, long jump, and running.
So you were doing a lot. So when you were at school,
yeah,
you weren't just an 800-meter runner or a middle distance runner. You're more everything.
Yeah, because again, like coming from where we came from, there wasn't much outside of football. We played soccer, and that's purely what we played. And you go to school here, there's all these sports that I chucked at you, and you're like, man, I'd love to give it a go. So when it was only purely just through athletics carnivals and whatnot, and it's like, yeah, I want to give high jump a go. Like I think I jumped at school, I jumped 180, and I couldn't Frosby flop, so it was scissor kick.
Yeah, that's the old scissors,
scissor
as
kick,
opposed to the Western roll or whatever they call it.
Yeah, as opposed to
really?
so I could jump pretty high.
What'd you say?
180.
That's not bad because when you consider the records like 210 or 220.
Yeah. So it's
not that far off.
Kick. And then my brother broke it and jumped like 185, and he could scissor kick that.
For those who don't know, the scissor kick means you don't turn on your side. You actually run and jump up, and one leg goes over and the other leg follows.
Yeah,
like a scissor.
Like a scissor. Yeah.
That's mad. Like that's so old school. People probably stopped scissor kicking 20 years ago.
Yeah.
At the high levels, at say Olympic levels, etc. But like at every level, I think. Yeah. Because you get mechanically, you can jump much higher if you do the other style. But when I was at school, they call it the Western roll, but as opposed, but I know what you call it now. You just mentioned another name. I don't know what it is, but there's just biomechanically a much more efficient way of jumping over the high jump. So, but 185, that's pretty high.
That's pretty high. But if you've never done long jump before and someone tells you to get off the bar, I think the easiest way is probably trying to do scissor kick.
Wow, really?
You don't have that training, so you just try to get over instead of Frosby.
So when you went to school, when you first turned up in Perth, how old were you?
So how old was I? I was probably just out of primary, so I was 14, 15.
So so you're at a local school in Perth. Where were we talking about? Perth.
I was on the south side, so we grew up in Thornley the whole time I was in Perth.
Okay, so there's this kid at the local school, and the first athletic carnival comes up. At this stage, you're speaking English probably perfectly.
Fluent.
Yeah, and they say the athletic carnival's coming up, and there wouldn't be many kids from Sudan in your school in Perth.
No, actually
for sure.
Yeah.
for sure. And because I lived over there for a while, and it's a pretty unusual sort of. Well, I love Perth. It's a pretty unusual sort of place relative to the rest of Australia. It's not as multicultural as the rest of Australia. A lot of Asian people now, but not very multicultural, generally speaking, because Asia is very close to Perth, or Singapore is very close to Perth, and it's quite a short commute. Indonesia is quite close too. And they see this kid, and they go on the athletic carnival, and everyone sort of say, "What the fuck? Like, who's this guy?"
Yeah. When we went to Perth, it was actually like I didn't like it because we spent just 4 years trying to adapt and make friends, and now you gotta move to a different state, and then you find out like it's across the country. So it was a little bit tough, but I wasn't really interested in athletics either. I wasn't doing athletics.
You weren't interested?
No. Like, and I think that's purely because I thought about it a lot, and I think purely because athletics is an individual sport. I never grew up individually. I grew up with a team of brothers and family. We've moved everywhere together. We've played and shared everything. And athletics is just individual. It just made no sense. And on top of that, like, running is just doing laps is boring.
Yeah, totally boring.
I did not want anything to do with that, but I was good at it, and I went to school where it was compulsory. Like cross country was compulsory.
Oh, really?
You had to run. Swimming carnivals was kind of compulsory. Everything. So I'd rock up and I would win cross country, and everyone would be like impressed. It's like, man, this is just what we did. Like it's not a big deal. We just ran around so many times. So I think it impressed everyone, but I was so passionate about basketball, and I actually went to that school on a basketball scholarship. So I just wanted to stay playing basketball.
And obviously, I mean, it sounds like you're good at every bloody thing, but don't tell me you're a great swimmer too.
What was that?
Don't tell me you're a great swimmer too.
No.
On top of everything, basketball, athletics, I jump in the pool, do 100 meters.
Every swimming carnival, I was kind of sick. So I never actually rocked up to the pool.
Yeah. Well, it actually made me feel a bit better now because I was starting to get a bit sort of annoyed with myself, or annoyed with my own genetics. But you love is that still your first love, basketball?
Yeah, I would say so.
As a sport to watch too.
As a sport to watch, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and if I go back to the running though, like they put you in a cross country and you're going to blitz them in the cross country. If you know a lot about biomechanics now, obviously you know a lot about biomechanics, and I want to go back to if you attended AIS or the equivalent of the West Australian Institute of Sport. If I assume there is one, or did you go to any of the Institute of Sports? I want to come back to that in a second. But in terms of biomechanics, what do you think it is that, especially when you're say 15-year-old? And I don't know if you're the same size of 15 as you are now, whether you're early mature in terms of general stature. What do you think it is that makes a good runner for distance? Let's call it 800, middle distance and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think, the advantage we have where I'm naturally pretty light and quick on my feet. So you've got to have that power, you've got to have that endurance, which I was winning cross country at school without any training. So I've had that natural endurance. And then you just had to, biomechanically, you have to get stronger and have that power. So, and naturally as you grow, you get stronger and bigger. So like my times are just improving as I continue to grow. So there's the strength component, which you have to have. There's the physique that you kind of have. We naturally have that physique as being South Sudanese, we're tall, quite skinny but powerful.
Yeah.
So it makes for a great runner.
Because you got your leg. I noticed when I've watched you when you've competed, and you've got long legs.
Very long legs. Yeah.
Long legs relative to your torso, so to speak, as opposed to say someone like me. I got a long torso and a short leg, so I'm hopeless. And then the power comes from the back of your body, like your glutes or your posterior chain.
Yeah, glutes and core. Like we got strong core.
But so would you say that that's just natural? Or was your dad saying to you every morning, listen, do sit ups or something?
No, my dad interestingly has never told me to go to training in my life. Like, and neither has my mom. But I always thought it was natural. But then you think about it, like where we came from, we didn't have much, but we kind of had each other, and every single chance we get, we were training, like, but it wasn't structured. We were always out there playing football, running around. That's all we did. So you build strength, right? You're wrestling with your brothers. You're doing this. I remember growing up, we used to do boxing with each other. So you think it's natural, but you were just training, but you just didn't really think about it.
And at what stage did someone say to you, okay, Peter, like we've been watching you in school sports and various carnivals, etc. We want you to join an athletic club.
When I think it was when I was year 10. And you have obviously the school cross country, which I won, and then you had the inter-school cross country, which gets a little bit more serious. Now you've competing against every single school, and you have kids that are specializing in athletics, and I came second, and everyone was shocked. Like it was like, whoa, like you really have a talent for this, and I think you should do it outside of school. And I kind of like just declined in a nice way, and I just said I don't really want to run. It's not my passion.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah, it was just not my thing. So I think it wasn't until year 12 again I kept losing and coming second, and I was pretty competitive. Like growing up with brothers, you're super competitive. I was like, why am I always coming second? Like I want to win, and I took the offer in year 11, and I started training outside of school.
But was it somebody who sort of like picked you out as great potential, like some individual?
Yeah, my teacher picked me, and she had a conversation with me, like I think for 2 years in a row, trying to convince me to do this outside of school. And
she was persistent.
She was very persistent. Yeah.
Why do you think that is the case? Why do you think someone like that becomes persistent? Why do you think that in our lives we come across somebody who maybe doesn't give up on us, but won't give up on us, and of course we don't see it as a kid. Why do you think someone chose you to be someone who they wouldn't give up on and keep encouraging them to do something?
I think it comes from within, and also comes from their story, because as I got to know my teacher outside of school, and she got her father involved, which he mentored me. She used to be a great swimmer, and her dad never gave up on her, and he saw great potential in her. But she also, I think, saw great potential in me as a person, and someone that she wanted to help. And she would ask me every single year, and I'd say no, but then she realized maybe it's not because he's not passionate, maybe he doesn't know where to go. and she got her dad involved, said, do you know the athletics clubs and all this stuff? And as soon as those doors opened and all I had to do was rock up, I said yes. And I think once she figured that out, she's like, maybe it's not about passion. Maybe it's not about laziness and all these things people kind of say. You got so much talent, but you don't apply yourself. Maybe it's more about opportunity for other people.
Because there's a lot of books written about. There's a very famous one called Outliers, written by a guy called Malcolm Gladwell, and he's talking about intellectual outliers, but sort of like just talent outliers. Generally speaking, the same would apply. Often outliers don't realize how strong their talent is relative to everybody else, and on many occasions, a lot of the outliers never actually achieve anything. It's only rare that you get an outlier, someone like Oppenheimer, etc., who wants to pursue with their outlier talent. They want to pursue something very important, and end up, in his case, he did something fairly important, very important, relative to the rest of the world. You wonder why. I often wonder why someone like you, who is an outlier, doesn't necessarily want to do it. Not lazy, just can't see the point in it. But why am I doing that? I often wonder what it is, the thing it is that actually makes them change their mind on a particular time. Say, stuff it. Yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a crack at this. I'm going to pursue my talent.
Yeah.
Not pursue a career, not pursue an outcome, but I'm going to pursue my talent. What do you think it was that got you to make the call? Because she was consistent. She kept asking. But what was it that clicked in your mind that said, Peter, come on, let's give this a crack?
I actually think it's the way you see the world and a different perspective you get to see the world. For me personally, was that I saw the world in different scales, obviously, in such a small scale. And then when you get to athletics, you get to see so much of the world. And I was pretty talented pretty early. So like as soon as I committed to running that first year, I was like in Sydney. So I was like, wow, like you get to travel for free. Like that's pretty cool, right?
Oh, you with the athletic squad, you came over?
Yeah, when I came over, like because I came to Toowoomba and Perth, and that was it. I never saw any of the rest of Australia. I was like, oh man, sport can be your passport. So you get to see the world in a different sense, and then you're seeing like, and then on top of that, you're seeing like you're learning about different athletes and what they do and how they apply themselves, and then that drive. And then the second is, I think my drive is like I want to be the best, and I will not stop until I get there. I was second, I want to be first, and then I get first, and then you find out like, oh, you're just first at the school. Like there's like people in Queensland, there's people in New South Wales, and there's a title to be won, and then it's like the fastest Australian junior, and it's like, well, I want to get there. And then once you set yourself that goal, you kind of try anything to get there, and you just want to get to that top.
Because I often think to myself, is that people say I'm competitive and therefore I want to win, or is it something sort of greater than that? Is it like, I want to travel Australia, and if this is a way I can, like, I know a lot of boxers do this. Their only way out, and rugby league players a lot of times, my only way out of the shit life that I might be presented with, and I'm not saying your life was a shit life, but the excitement of life that you may not be getting presented with living at home with your family. The things that look exciting, especially to a young person. The only way I'm going to get to taste that stuff is to compete and win. Because a lot of people say, I'm competitive and therefore I want to win. Yeah, but I see lots of other reasons why people, even as a young person, we can recognize that I'm not going to get to do what everyone else is doing unless I take this risk and try harder and train harder. And a lot of times that's our greatest sportsmen in this country very rarely have come from the really expensive schools where families are really wealthy.
Yeah.
Particularly if I look at our boxing greats, etc., our football greats. I don't know a lot about athletics, but our athletic greats, but swimming greats as well. Swimming is slightly different because parents have to have money to be able to put you through the program, but nonetheless, it's about improving your life. How much of this, like I'm seeing myself on the improvement curve. I've come from Sudan. I went out of there. I got out of there. That was a lot of drama there. I went in Egypt, and that was pretty good, but better than Sudan, but not as good as where we went to. Then we went to Toowoomba. Toowoomba was pretty good. Now I'm in Perth. Perth's pretty good, but there's a lot more good stuff out there.
Yeah.
I want to keep pushing on the improvement curve. How much of that is about is Peter Bowles?
I actually think it's about 80%.
Yeah.
Because I always struggled with, you know, when you're doing something for so long, and you get to meet people that do it out of pure passion. I was always kind of jealous of that. I've seen people that are so passionate about athletics, about running, and I wasn't really a student of running. I didn't even know who I was running up against in my first Olympic Games. I was just there because I wanted to be in that improvement curve. I wanted to represent. Now, like you see, like I became Australian citizen in 2006. Around September, I was like, man, like I became Australian citizen. Now, like I'm running for the country. I'm now representing so many people, and then you see like the world kind of get behind you, like Australia gets behind you, and then you see the migrants get behind you, not even just the South Sudanese, they kind of just get behind you. And now like you stand for something for these people, and it's like that's like 80%, and you still have to enjoy, and I still do enjoy it. I don't hate it, but there's no way I'm as passionate as anyone else around there, because I could tell you now, like I don't watch much athletics. The first Olympics, I didn't know who I was running against. It wasn't until like 2 years ago that I started looking at my opponents, and mainly because someone told me that's how you improve. You gotta study your opponents. You gotta be a student of the sport. You gotta know splits. You gotta know time. And that's when I started looking into it. I've been to 3 Olympics, and after my events, I've barely gone to any athletics to watch. I've definitely gone to basketball every time I had a chance to go watch that.
Because that's your love.
Yeah,
that's your passion.
That's your passion, and that's what you love. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you don't apply the same amount of effort to the thing. Your job is the 800. By the way, did you do any other events apart from the 800? Have you done it? Not in the Olympics, I'm talking about, but outside Olympics. Was there another event that was your favorite?
No, it was just kind of the 800. It was
why that? Because that's a tough run, by the way. But 800, why that? Is it because that you felt that's what you're best at? Yeah,
I just felt I was too lazy to do the training for anything longer. I thought I would be, honestly, I think probably naturally better at maybe a more 1500, a little bit longer, because I came from winning cross country pretty easily naturally. But I just didn't want to do that training and running circles.
So what's the difference between 800 training and 1500 training?
It's more kilometers. So
you just got to get more in your legs.
You just got to get more in your legs.
Wow.
And I wasn't interested in doing that. I was more interested in just staying explosive, powerful, because I was still playing basketball on the side. I wanted to keep playing basketball. If you're running 15 and longer, you're running like 80 Ks or more a week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I wasn't interested in running anything more than 40, 50 Ks a week.
That's a lot too. But
that's a lot. But for a runner, it's not that much. For a distance runner.
Yeah. That's interesting. And can I ask you, like, I know you're a Muslim by faith, and you still live a faithful life.
Yeah.
Today.
We try my best.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that. I mean, we're all going to try our best. We're going to try our best, and then which basically means we're not perfect at it, but we have the structure to try to live it that way. How much of the Muslim religion dictates or determines that we must take advantage of what God has given us in terms of talent? In other words, and I don't know a lot about the Muslim religion, and therefore I'm asking you, is it considered disrespectful to God not to take advantage of the skill you got?
I don't know if it's so much disrespectful. I think you're on this earth on a learning curve, right? You make mistakes and you just kind of learn from them. But if you have a gift, it's considered you use it.
Yeah.
And you don't just use it for yourself, you use it to better your life and better the people around you, right? You got to give, you got to forgive and all that stuff. So I think it's in your duty to use your gift. And
that's a good way of putting it. It's a duty.
Yeah, to use your gifts and talents.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So does that drive you, or did that drive you during that period?
It definitely drove me a lot, because I had this talent that I knew I could not just change my life, but change everyone around me. Yeah. So I think that definitely made me wanted to do it a little bit more. And it made it a little bit different too. Having faith on your side and having family and having like strong values actually made the sport more enjoyable. Because
how so?
Because it like you had less pressure. You're like, this is a gift and I'm going to do the best I can. But the most important thing is your faith and your family and your values outside of that. So
you had a fallback position.
You always had a fallback position, right? So like those are the strong those what you need to strengthen, and the sport will strengthen itself. But you got to keep doing the training, right? But you almost can't do sports without strengthening. That is especially if you're tired in the middle. You've got to like be a non-believer and to try to strengthen that. But if you're a believer, you're always kind of conflicted in the middle. So you've got to work on them both.
So because I see some young Muslims, not so much young anymore, but some like Sonny Bill Williams, who is quite open about his faith. And also a lot of the Islander boys who are quite open about their Christian faith.
Yeah.
In terms of where it fits into in terms of rugby league, because that's more the area I'm interested in my own personal life. But the way they openly display it and they openly lean into it in order to help them do what they're about to do, and in fact, actually, to some extent, and I saw it during the Paris Olympics, which obviously just finished, but especially on the athletic field, I saw a few people sort of look up to Allah and do the sign that they do prior to their event. Can you, I don't know how strictly religious you are, but what is it that people are asking for when they do that, or what are they giving when they look up and or think before a race in relation to sort of the Islamic faith, the Muslim faith? What is it they're saying or thinking about?
Yeah,
are they offering it to God?
Yeah, I think different people have obviously different, but for me personally, I do pray, and I just pray to be able to do the best I've prepared for. So, and someone said, do you pray that you do better than your opponents? I said no. Like you just pray for a safe journey, and you pray that you can do the best that you prepared for, and that's it. And you leave the rest up to Allah, right? You just do the best you can.
But that's interesting. You should say the best you prepared for, which then takes you down to the preparation period.
Yeah.
If you don't do well, you can just sort of say, well, maybe I didn't prepare well enough.
Yeah.
And then you've got to look at all the reasons why I didn't prepare well enough, and for the next period the next race period that's coming up, like 6 months.
Because it holds you accountable as well.
Totally, because it's up to you.
It's up to you. God obviously knows what you want, but I don't think you're just given it. You still have to work for it. So
do you have to practice in your faith gratitude for what you've been given?
Yeah, gratitude is a big one, and it keeps you kind of at peace. And that's honestly what I pray for if I want to race, because like you become a dangerous opponent when you're just at peace, chilled, and you're calm and chilled.
Yeah, and
that's all you ask for, and then the rest is up to you to execute the race. Right.
That's interesting. You become a dangerous opponent, in that you're not putting too much pressure on, your biochemistry. That's your cortisol and your adrenaline and all that sort of stuff. Because I do want to talk to you about nervousness before a race. That adrenal fatigue. Maybe you could take me through that. I mean, we'll take our audience through that. I've experienced, but what does it mean? So, I want to know how you control your state of mind. And have you had some really crazy moments where your heart's pumping so hard?
Yeah.
And by the way, this happens to everybody, especially in the early stages of their career, sporting career, that you suffer fatigue. Because 800, 100 is explosive, but 800, you've got to have endurance, and you can't be fatigued.
No.
You've got to sleep properly. You can't, hopefully no injuries, but you've got to be able to keep your pace going, and you've got to be able to have that burst of energy at a later part of the race. So you can't be burn out early on. There's this whole thought process and strategy going into the race.
Yeah.
And if all of a sudden the strategy gets stuffed up for some reason, you got to get your head around it somehow. Maybe you just take me through the way you understand your own biochemistry in terms of being 100% ready, set for your best performance in an 800. So what are you trying to achieve? The night before, perhaps nutrition, perhaps the week before. What's your little process, and are there any superstitions sitting there?
Yeah, so that is a really interesting question, and I think it's a huge question because I think all that stuff matters, like the preparation beforehand, the night before, the fuel you eat, all those kind of matter, and I think they matter because they keep you in a peaceful mindset. You don't want to rock up to a start line and saying, "I wish I would have prepared better." Like that's already doubt, and when you have doubt, it's tough to compete with doubt. You don't want to rock up thinking I've got a niggle and I'm a little bit injured. That's another thing in your mind. You want to remove as much things out of your head to kind of stay present. Like the best races I've had is being present. Like you spoke before about obviously your strategy can go out the way. The 800 is one of the most brutal races to have a strategy for, because in that first 200 you're all in different lanes and then you cross over. Yeah. So your strategy might be, I want to be first across that line, and then you end up being at the back. What do I do now? And you have to prepare for those in training. You have to, and the best race I've had is just being present, and your body and your muscle memory just knows when to make those moves. Because if you're trying to think about, should I make that move? Someone's already made it and you're too late. Like there's no time for error. There's no time for thinking. It's like just muscle memory, making those moves. And a few races that I've raced really well, and I was like going through first lap, going through second lap, and there's a gap open. I didn't think about it. I just moved. And a race that I was thinking about, should I take that gap? By the time I decided, someone's already taken it, and you're kind of set at the back. Yeah. So you've got to be absolutely present. And to be present, you've got to be calm. And there's things you kind of do and apply. Like before every race, I'll do my breathing. I do my prayers, whatever, just to try to get myself in that calm state. And you rock up to a stadium with like, I remember Commonwealth Games, I rock up to the stadium. I think it was like sold out crowd, and you don't really hear the crowd. You're just present
because you're so far within your own mind.
Yeah. And when I have no distraction and think about anything else, I know it's going to be a good race. Versus if I'm thinking about like injury, thinking about the next opponent, thinking about that, I know it's going to be a difficult race.
So are there some things you rule out then during, let's say you're getting ready for the Com Games and or any other equivalent? Do you sort of say, okay, for the next 6 months before, I don't know what the period is for prep. I mean, obviously it's a long prep, it's years, but the last 6 months before you compete or race, do you sort of say, okay, rule out girlfriend, I don't know, in your case, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it happens to be, but let's say it's a girlfriend. Rule out relationships, one, because, like, and I'm looking for like strict rules. I rule out late nights. I rule out hanging out with my mates. I rule out blah, blah. These things you cannot do.
Yeah.
Because they're distractions.
Yeah.
And or things that could change your peace of mind.
Yeah.
Give you that little thing that pisses you off. That sort of will, because in your case, we're talking about points of a second.
Yeah.
1/10 of a second is that far.
Yeah.
At the speed you guys are running. So do you like have a mindset, a structure that you stick to, like a game plan?
Yeah. And part of that is actually ruling out training hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because you don't want to rock up to a start line fatigued and too tired.
So you want to be peaking.
And that's the hardest one because you always want to push at training.
Yeah, because I need more. I need more kilometers.
I need more. But the reality is you're not gonna get any fitter in a week. But what you can get in a week is get injured, right? You're not going to get any better. So ruling out hard training is probably one of the most important things because an athlete at our level, like if you're like, of course you're only human and you still face distractions and you face all this stuff, but you've kind of worked out a system where you work that stuff out. It's like you don't get there by fluke. Like you've ruled out distractions. You've ruled out like late nights before a race and all that stuff. Like if you still have to rule that out, you've got a long way to go. At that high level, you've got to be able. It's to do with training. I think most importantly, training, sleep, recovery. So important. You've got to get the physio. Some of these things are like just time, right? They're boring. Like why do I want to go to a physio? Go get a massage. Why do I need to stretch? Like why do I have to sleep early and all those things? But you've got to do these things. And
so what period would you be doing that for? Because it can get a bit, I'd imagine, it can get a bit boring. So
yeah. And for me, it's got to be like, I know if I've got a race in about 2 months or something like that. I'll have a training camp, and that's where everything is ruled out. In training camp, you go away. So we usually go up. Sometimes I'll go up to Perisher in I think New South Wales, and there naturally rules out all distractions. Like there's nothing to do in Perisher other than kind of run and be at peace with yourself. So you rule it out. Through training camps is a great way to do it. Like you set yourself up for a training camp for 3 weeks, and you're there just purely training, getting the right food, and that's all you're doing is running. I think it's harder to rule it out when you're back home, because now you've got friends, family, you've got everything. So instead of avoiding distractions, you just move away from it.
So, but when you're saying you move away from distractions, do you take like iPads and start? Do you get sort of stuck in things like YouTube or whatever? I mean, What do you do to? Or you're meditating? I don't know what's going on.
No, it's whatever you're passionate about, because majority of our training is recovery, right? You got to recover enough,
which means you got time.
You have so much time, and you don't want to get on the other side of underperforming, which is boredom. Boredom can also lead to underperforming, so you don't want to be too bored. So number one, you've got to have the right group of training group that's around you that you kind of enjoy being around, because you don't want to be in your head the whole time. That's not helpful. So you take your iPad, you take your books, you have some friends. Some of the best training camps I've had is going overseas and just calling a few friends and just running with them. Or Perth, I'd get some of my brothers and some of the people I grew up with to come and do training with me. They're not professional athletes, they're not even runners, but they'll come. The beauty of it was just being amongst people, because if you're doing it all by yourself, it gets really hard. So you're not really trying to rule out everything, because you get too bored. You've got to be able to, like leading up to a championship, you've got to be able to make sure everything's the same. You don't want to change too many things. You don't want to completely rule out everyone. You just end up stressing yourself.
That's
so I try to stay pretty calm and pretty normal, but obviously like less of everything, less of training, less of socializing, less of going out, more of recovery, more of sleep, more of eating good and all that stuff.
It sounds pretty intense though. Intense in a sort of reverse way, in that it's everything on the edges doesn't exist. You're just sort of keeping everything within a nice range, pretty much, that's sort of intense in itself, because, human beings by nature wanted to go to the edge and push beyond, and let's do this little bit extra training, or let's do something a bit crazy, whatever, especially when you're a young man, it's pretty natural. But keeping it all in a contained space in itself is quite intense, I would have thought.
Yeah.
I mean, and do you ever get to the point where you say, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Heaps of times.
And what do you do then?
Through different years, you kind of go through it. Like I got to the edge through training, and I got injured before the 2018 Commonwealth Games, which is the one I was looking forward to the most, being in Australia. So I pushed myself to the edge through training too hard then. So after that, I've learned you've got to train smart, you've got to be wise, and you got to not push too hard sometimes, right?
And what does it mean? You end up getting an overuse injury.
So I had a stress fracture.
Yep.
Yeah. So overuse, just repetition.
Yep.
So I pushed myself through that edge, and then at other times, I went to training camps with just purely runners. Remember, I'm not really that interested in the running itself. I'm kind of interested in the training, and developing myself, right? So going purely with passionate runners, and then you just mentally drain yourself, and no matter how hard I'm training, my performance is going down. That's not where I belong. That's too intense for me. So it's all about you finding your place, right? My place is not to go on a training camp with a bunch of runners and all we're talking about is running and catching up after running. It's no, my place is going to a camp with good people that I can talk outside with, and that has nothing to do with running. It's that's my place. We can still train, but we'll leave it all as soon as we leave that track.
Well, because when I just want to slightly change pace, pardon the pun, but pun intended. When are I just like your opinion on this or your commentary on this, and it's sort of a diametrically opposed to the person you just presented to me, being yourself, that is, and obviously there are others similar to you. But if you look at the Jamaicans and the USA, particularly the 100 meter, the glamour events like the 100 meter, 200 meter events, and you see if I could just reflect on the women's events first, they got the massive eyelashes. They got things going on with their hair and earrings, and their fingernails are huge, massively long, and they're playing to the camera big time, like big time. Like it's nearly like entertainment.
Yeah.
And then the guys are the same, but in a different format. But there's a same sort of deal, you know. And they look to me. That looks to me, if that was me in their shoes, that would be a massive distraction for me. Like that would be hard for me to concentrate on what it is I'm about to do, particularly, you know, because this is not just on the night of the event. Like particularly in the last Olympics, they're doing this all the time. In fact, they made Netflix did a series on them.
Sprinter,
yeah, and I thought to myself, it's nearly like they're marketing themselves as individuals. Because they've got to make money in the future, and it's one where they make money and they get sponsorships and all that sort of stuff. I get it. But I thought to myself, it would be very difficult if you're in your athletic world to be that person, especially like 1 minute before the race, you're pitching up in front of the crowd and you're doing the crowd up, etc. But you're presenting a different type of person to me. Yeah. What do you think about that type of, I don't want to call it behavior, but that type of those types of characteristics?
Yeah.
Relative to, say, the way you present?
I mean, I got a good story. I think it was my first Olympics. I was in Rio, and like as I said, I didn't really know much, and I went to a warm up track, and you get to see every single person. And the beauty of athletics is you're seeing every different culture, you know. And I was there trying to warm up, and it was actually quite distracting because I was trying to see every single person. I saw the Kenyans and the East Africans. They were just like really shy. They're like look really nervous. I was like, man, like these guys are gonna underperform. They just look too shy. And then I looked on the other side, and the Americans and Jamaicans, and Bolt Funny was there, and they had music blasting, and they were just having the best time. I was like, these guys are gonna clean up the medal tally. But
because they're relaxed,
they just look so relaxed and so confident. They're like, we're gonna win.
They're
like,
in charge.
They had that show, and they were in charge of everything. But it was really interesting that at the end of the Olympics, like the same East Africans that were shy, they cleaned up the medals. And you just realize it was just a personality thing. And Bolt and stuff still collected medals. It wasn't about their behaviors. It wasn't about that. It was truly about them being who they are, and that's who they are.
Yeah,
like they can be comfortable in their own shoes and do that stuff, and it elevates them. But if you switch that around and you try to get a Kenyan to do what the Americans and the Jamaicans were doing, I think it will create too much stress, and it won't be good for their performance. So, in short answer, it's definitely what your personality is, and if you're putting it up, it's pretty hard. I think like Noah Lyles, that's who he is. He's confident. He loves the crowd. He gets something out of it. Usain Bolt's the same. He gets something out of it. But I don't think I could go do that. It's just not my personality. And then it'll also create too much stress. And then again, creating stress, you're not really at peace. You're not present during the race, and it's just going to underperform.
Because you did say about being, in your case at least, being at peace and being present in the moment, about doing it and without distraction.
Yeah.
Then I look at Noah, like he's it doesn't look like he's at peace to me. Like, but he looks like he's completely distracted. Yet he goes and does, nearly breaks the world record
and he wins when everyone's betting against him.
At
the highest level.
Yeah, totally.
But that comforts him.
Did you get to meet these dudes?
Yeah, you get to meet them. And
what are they like outside of the camera or away from the camera?
They're pretty normal, but like their personality is not much different. That's who they are. They're loud. They're confident. I think it's a whole culture thing. Yeah. And I wouldn't say, for example, it's Australian culture. You don't see that.
No, it's not.
You don't see that. You don't see like we obviously clean up in the swimming pool, but you don't see people doing all of that. But America, like I've watched American sports for a very long time. That's their culture. I've got a few Jamaican friends. That's their culture. They just love the hype. They create it. They believe in it. While I think in our sense, in our culture, like even versus with the Australian culture, like yes, we create the hype. You believe in it, but you kind of still stay focused, and you just create it, and it has nothing to do with you. It's just your job to get in the pool and swim.
It's funny.
It's like almost you create the hype and you don't believe in it versus you create the hype and you believe in it.
And if you create the hype, you got to believe in it.
Yeah.
You must.
You must.
Otherwise, right? you'll kook it. 100%.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say, because sitting in that chair yesterday was Cody Simpson, and Cody came in with, there was 2 women came in with, one of whom was his PR person, and the other person, he just said, "Well, I'll see you in a minute, Am." And it's Emma McKeon, and I'm saying, like, what the hell? There's Emma McKeon, and but like it was, and she was just like, because she was accompanying him, because they're a couple, and he was the star for the day. You know what I mean? Like, and she just took the backward step, and whereas my gut feeling is, if that was an American,
it's like bring another seat.
You would, if that would have said, "Can I sit down here with him?" sort of thing, or whatever. And that you're right, it's probably very Australian.
Yeah.
Like it's not Australian to be that way.
Yeah.
And in Jamaican culture, I've never been in Jamaica, but like just I suspect from what I look at, not necessarily athletes, just generally, they're pretty outgoing, having a lot of fun, hanging out, music, dancing, chill. And maybe you're right, and that's like people like Bolt. That's just, you don't have to be Usain Bolt to have that personality. Probably everyone in Jamaica is like that. That's the deal.
I think the hard thing is if you are Australian and that's your personality, and you try to show it, and people are like, whoa, well, that's not who we are. But that's what you need to perform the best. And I think that's the hard part, because then you have the public kind of against you, but that's who you are, and that's what you need to perform. So it should be fine. Like sport is entertainment. And that's what you're there for, entertainment. Everyone has a different purpose and different reason to be there, right? Not everyone's the same. But if you're competing by the rules, you're competing by the rules, and your personality should show. Do
you think Australians are looking to you for entertainment, or they're looking for you? Do Australians look more, not just to you, but to all our competitors and representatives? Do you think Australians more looking for you to do your best outcome, to try your hardest? What do you think Australians' expectations are of our athletes and swimmers?
I think the Australian expectation is go out there and give it a go.
Yeah.
Like give it all you can.
Yeah.
That's the expectation. With the US, is like the expectations are like go out there and win.
Yeah.
Because they believe they're the best at everything, right? It's like go out there and win. It's like Australia, like go out there, do your best. And both create different comforts, right? When you're going out there doing your best, it's like, well, you don't have that pressure of trying to impress and do everyone proud and all that stuff. You're just going out there and being you, and that's what we want from you, right? While America, I think it creates a very competitive world, and like they're dominating a lot of sports, because like if you're going to Olympics, we want to see medals, and it's intense, but they still get results. Both get results, so it's like it's just where you're at.
Just thinking whilst I was talking to you, then the only other person I've really met in person, and I had a good friendship, I have a friendship with him, was Johnny Stephenson, which was who's a 400 runner.
400, yeah.
Yeah, and Johnny used to always talk to me about, and he actually we got him, and I put him into the Celebrity Apprentice, one of the series, only because Jeff Fennick asked me would I do it, because did you know that John Stephenson originally was an amateur fighter?
MMA?
A boxer.
A boxer, yeah.
Before he even put a pair of running shoes on. His first pair of running shoes, like he's 21 or something.
Yeah.
He had like 30 amateur fights as an amateur boxer, and then he went into the 400. He became a 400 runner. He went to the Olympics and he went to the Commonwealth Games. I think he won a Commonwealth Games medal.
He did.
In the 400.
In the 400. He's a great example of a person with personality similar to Jamaicans. He's outgoing. He's
100%.
Very cool.
Which
one of my
favorite
people.
when we're talking then.
Yeah.
Johnny Steph's got that.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's good mates with Bolt, for example. They're
exactly
great
right.
mates. And there's sort of similar characteristics.
Yeah.
And another great success story for Australia in terms of, I guess 400 is middle distance runner, but came out of nowhere, literally came out of nowhere. I think he's South African, from not South African, but like southern part of Africa, where his family is. You're more northern part of Africa. Khartoum is more north. Sudan is more north of Africa. Is that correct?
Sudan is in the east. It's East Africa,
but it's more to the top.
It's more,
less sort of towards the bottom.
South.
Yeah. You know, by the way, when you say Khartoum, did you know you probably don't know because you're much too young for it, but 40 years ago there was an unbelievably great movie called Khartoum. The movie was called Khartoum. It's a real old black and white movie. I'm old enough to remember. And it was like one of the greatest movies of all time. Like, like some really famous actors were in it. I can't remember, Peter O'Toole and those sorts of people, like people, again, you would never heard of. But and Khartoum, to me, when I saw it, when I was a kid, but Khartoum, my memory of Khartoum, and the only memory I have of, because I've never been there, is a very exotic place. And I don't know why, just exotic from the way the film came across. And then when someone like you tells me a story about how it's been bitten by war for such a long time, it's sort of a little bit of anathema for me. It's nearly like, how can they be? Because Khartoum was in my mind, such a romantic sounding place, and the vision of what I saw on the TV in the movie. We are talking. Well, I'm 68, so actually it's more than 40 years ago. It's 60 years ago I saw the movie. I was just a kid.
Yeah.
And like 60 years ago, there was a movie called Khartoum, and it was presented and it wasn't a movie of the time. It was a movie representing what was happening in the 1920s. So it must have been a pretty cool place at some stage, Khartoum. Do you know of anything of that? Do you know where a period when Khartoum was considered a safe and vibrant and exotic place?
Me personally, I wouldn't say I have, because I left when I was 6, and I never went back. Versus my family went back when I was competing and stuff like that. I was too busy to go, and they quite enjoyed it. It was really nice. They had all the family around, and people there. It was like, they just, as long as they have each other and they have family around and music, and that's their culture, like music and dancing and combining everyone around, that to them is all need. And yeah, when I was at school, I think that time was there, but it wasn't there for long enough, unfortunately, and it's nothing consistent.
It's a sort of a terrible shame when you think, when I hear people like you tell me that about a place like Sudan and or Khartoum being, is it the capital?
The capital, yeah.
It's capital of Sudan.
Capital of Sudan, and Juba is the capital of South.
So when it comes to mindset and not having distractions, we have to cover this off, but like when they allegedly took the positive test from you, but just take me through how it works. So do you have to do a urine test, blood test? What's the deal? What's the process?
Yeah, we have to do a urine test, and
after every event, or just randomly?
It's random. And they can also come to your house and do random testing, and you select an hour. And my hour is generally in the morning.
So then it's a urine test,
and it's urine or blood. They can do both.
Oh, they can ask for blood too.
They can ask for blood. Majority of the times is urine and blood. Yeah,
urine and blood. So, and you give an A sample, a B sample, or something like that. You give more than one sample.
It's just the same sample. It's just
right. They just put in a different vials.
Just put B and an A.
Yeah. So when I followed it, and it was a bit of a shock to everybody. What is, if you had taken something like that? What would be the net effect of it, like physically, in a biochemical way or a biological way? What would something like that do for you? Or an 800-meter run?
I guess, I suppose you get fitter quicker.
But what's it do to your blood, or something, build muscle? What's it do? It's just, what's it supposed to do? Like, is it supposed to make you have your lungs get bigger or something? I don't know.
I think it increases your red blood cells, which makes you
more red blood cells, which carries more oxygen around your system, which
it's
allows
endurance,
and more for endurance.
Yeah.
So, and how'd you feel? Like, how'd you know about it? Like, what happens?
They come tell you. Like, they come to your house and tell you.
They said, we got this result.
Yeah.
They physically come to your house.
They physically come to your house. Yeah.
And then what happens?
And then you can kind of ask for your B sample.
Yeah.
And which I did, and then you kind of on a waiting process until that B sample comes.
Yeah.
And which you learn a lot when you go through something like that. You learn a lot, and you learn that, like, at that time you think you're like doing, because the B sample, it's the same sample. It never comes different.
Yeah.
Like, why would it come different? If it's one's positive, the other one should be positive. So
it's taken on the same day.
Same day. Yeah. So you still selected. At the time, I didn't even know if there was a point, because they always come the same. But somehow they came different. I was like, well, that's an error on your side then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Why don't they test the B sample straight away? What's the point of?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
I mean, why do they go, oh shit, hang on, this one is giving us an anomaly. We're not going to see. We'll just test the B sample first.
Yeah,
and then they're different.
They should do that, but at that stage, I don't think anyone's really trying to do you any favors, right?
Why? I mean, it seems like they're
but I also
trying to catch out.
I also think because if the A sample is positive, they just think the B sample is going to be positive too, because it's the same sample.
Yeah.
But I also think
therefore they should test it straight away.
Should test it straight away. Such a big accusation.
Totally.
You should do all the work.
The gravity of the accusation is so great.
Yeah.
That they should, before they make the accusation,
yeah,
and then they commence this whole process of the gravity, that they should test the B sample straight away and go, Absolutely. Hang on, let's just talk to Peter because there's an anomaly between the two.
Yeah, and I think if you had the time to come to my house, you've obviously had the time to test the B sample before coming. Yeah, coming as well. Like if you're gonna come accuse me of something like that, and which is hard, right? I think if you're not on the right mindset, it could destroy you. So if you're coming to do that, you better be sure. Like there's some things you just can't be incompetent in, and that's one of them because you're putting someone else's life in.
And who was which organisation doing it? Is it WADA? Who's doing the testing?
I actually don't know who does the testing. I think the testings are done by Sports Integrity maybe, and in the lab, and then they're taken out to Germany and whatnot, and that's where the results.
Was this before anything that was important for you, or was this pre-event?
Yeah, it was actually pretty important. Australian of the Year award. That's
pretty important.
That is pretty important.
Like,
and I was actually looking forward to go to it.
And how close was it to the event?
I think it was just 2 days before. What? Before it was leaked and publicly was.
So, but what is the obligation of the testing authority to publish it?
It shouldn't have been published.
Well, then how did it get out?
No one claims to ever know. It was leaked somewhere.
Did you get a call by media?
No, I actually didn't. I got called by my agent, and he said that it's been leaked.
So, in other words, a newspaper's going to print it, or a radio station or a television station is going to talk about it.
And it printed out so quick.
And what was your response? How did you feel?
At that stage, I actually didn't know how to feel, right? Because I just didn't know how to feel. I was kind of at home, and like I think the first thing I actually thought about was my family. I was like, man, that's tough. That's tough. That's tough
for them.
Yeah, and because with such accusation, you're just not you on your own now. It's like everyone else is put into question, like your family, your character, your coach, your staff team. So I just thought about all those people. I think I was the last person I thought about, which I think was tough. I should have thought about myself as well.
Yeah, you've got to be a bit selfish. I think when it comes to reputation. Yeah. Did you reach out to anybody?
Yeah, I reached out. Because I knew the results before I was waiting for the B sample, so I knew. So I actually reached out to my older brother, because I didn't know how to communicate that to my parents, right? So I said, if it ever gets leaked, like I need you to explain it to them, and that they'll be okay. And then obviously my coach, I reached out to my coach, let him know straight away. And that's it. And my manager, like no one else really.
So what do you do then? Just stay home? I mean, I don't know.
You literally just stay home and you're just waiting.
Keep your head down.
Keep your head down. But at that stage, I was like, surely they made a mistake. This is crazy. And I was still going to go to Australian of the Year Awards. And then after that leak, it was like, now, like, what do you do?
So what does the Australian of the Year Awards organisation do? They ring you up and say you can't come, or?
No, they're actually, you know what? They're actually really good. They're actually really good about it. They said, look, I remember I got a call and I thought it was pretty good of them. And they said, look, we know what's going on and we'd love to still have you if you want to come. But just to let you know, we've had the most media request to be here.
They'll be everywhere. And you'll end up
and that's your decision to make.
You'll just steal the night.
Yeah, and you steal the night. And I said, and that was my decision, was based on that. I said, I do not want to steal that night for anyone. I'm not coming.
I mean, for a young man, relatively young man at that stage as well, you leave a war-torn or a civil war-torn Sudan, you go to live in Egypt, you end up in Toowoomba, then you go to Perth, and you go through this whole process, and you're representing your country, you get nominated to be Australian of the Year.
Which is pretty cool because you weren't even Australian like 20 years ago.
Totally. It's like there's this magnificent sort of momentum.
Yeah.
For you and your family and everybody else, your whole community, who you represent.
It was really good energy, right?
Totally. And then you just get whack.
Yeah.
Like you've gone from the penthouse to the proverbial in minutes.
Minutes, yeah.
How do you pick yourself up? Like,
I think people played a big part, and as like we spoke before that, the identity out of sport is really important, and I've always worked on that. Like, again, your faith plays a big part, and you just like you just more at peace. You're like, you just leave the rest to God, right? You can do all you can do, and at that point, there's nothing you could actually do.
Yeah,
there's nothing you could do. Like, what was there to do other than control your own mindset and your own happiness? And that's not with saying that you don't go through it. You go through this roller coaster of emotions, like you feel like the whole world's against you. You feel betrayed, and like that feeling of betrayal is tough because like I've done nothing wrong. Like this is one is not fair. Two, I'm just trying to run. Like that's all I've ever tried to do. And then the worst part is like, well, who's bringing these allegations against you? Like,
then you start to look for the blame,
and then you look for the blame, and that's when you lose probably the most sleep because you can never truly know who it is, who leaked it, what was the intentions behind it. You just never know.
And why would they be bothered doing it? Why?
Like why? Like,
who have upset?
Like why me? Right? I think that's where you lose the most peace. I think that's still where I lose the most peace trying to think about it.
Today?
Because you just don't have answers. You want answers.
Yeah.
If you're done wrong, at least give me answers, right?
Yeah.
But there's no answers.
Do you have suspicions?
Yeah, I have my suspicions, I think. I definitely have my suspicions. And but the best thing about it, I think, the public was actually really good. That was pretty cool. Like,
how did you gauge that?
I think one from the love and support you get through messages,
like on social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, like social media. Like you expect your family to be with you, which is great. But then you also don't expect, you like when you go through something like that, you think, oh man, now they might turn against you, but no one really did. Like, of course, you have those keyboard warriors and whatnot, but they were always there. Even when I was doing great, it was oh, you're not Australian, you're not that. Yeah. So that was always there. Like, you kind of get used to that. But I think it would have hurt quite a lot if majority of the public kind of turned against you. But they didn't.
And what was the process? Do you have a right of appeal or something? How do you get the B sample? I mean, do you have to go to court to get them to look at it, or how's it all
Nah,
work?
you just select that you want it, I guess, retested, and you have to pay for all that stuff, and they kind of retest it for you. And again, I think it was leaked. I had a friend that called me and said your B sample wasn't the same as your A before I was notified by the authorities themselves. So it was leaked somewhere else before I was told first.
And what sort of level of relief did you feel when the B sample?
It was like, my manager called me and he had the most relief, and he was like, and he was kind of quiet because I didn't have the same sense of relief, because I was like, man, this shit should have never happened. Like what do you want me to celebrate? Like, this is crazy. Like, I had to even go through that. I think the relief I kind of had, again, thinking about other people, was like, oh, well, like, my family was really happy. Everything was really happy. But for me, I was like, man, this is still crazy, right? Like, it doesn't change much. It doesn't change the accusation. It doesn't change a lot. So there wasn't much of relief. There was still disappointment and anger for that whole period. And I did not feel any relief.
Yeah, because the outcome didn't change what happened.
No.
The result did not change what had happened to you.
What had happened, yeah.
And by the way, you can't change that.
You can't, yeah.
So how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you reconcile and, go back to where you were talking about very much earlier about being at peace?
You can definitely go back at peace, but you can't go back to where you were before.
Do you need to?
I don't think you need to. It just becomes part of your story.
Yeah.
And the easiest way is accept that it happened and try to move on.
Yeah.
But with that said, it's pretty hard to accept something like that. And I thought I could do it pretty quickly because like as an athlete, you build resilience and you build that. But like I built resilience based on like things that you knew would happen, like injury, not making teams,
things you expect,
like something like that is pretty hard. It's pretty hard to get through, and you realize like it's going to take time, and time is the only thing that's going to heal it. But time and extra work, you got to see people, you got to talk through it and all that stuff, which I didn't want to do. I had no interest in doing at all.
Did you sort of take a view, fuck them?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
That probably doesn't solve anything, though, does it?
No, it actually just hurts you more.
Yeah,
yeah.
You got to sort of talk it through, and at the end of the day, Richard Branson once told me this. He said, "Mark, we all worry about our own brand. If 50% of the people, if 100% of the people know who you are for whatever reason, good or bad, and only 50% of the people like you, then you've done well."
Yeah.
It doesn't matter about the other 50%.
That's pretty cool.
So events like this, 100% of Australians know who Peter Bowl is. If only 50% like you and 50% don't like you, and usually the ones who don't like you will tell you.
Yeah.
The other 50% who don't tell you is because they do like you, and they most people don't come out and say I like you.
Yeah.
If they don't like you, they'll definitely tell you. That's sort of actually one measure of success from his point of view.
Yeah.
In terms of branding, personal branding, and
that is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say that's probably, for the research my team's done on you, that's sort of where you are.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 50-50, but there's a lot of people. Some people come and say stuff about you, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who actually back you.
Yeah.
And they back you in. And, that's a pretty good outcome. You're only still young.
Yeah.
You're 30 years old now, aren't you? 30?
Yeah, 30. Yeah.
So, mate, you've lived 3 lives already.
Yeah.
For a 30-year-old. And you've got a long way to go too. And one of the things I want to talk to you about, speaking about that, is what most people don't realise is that you have at least one university degree. And I don't know how the hell you managed to do that, and what period of your life did you do this? This is a degree in project management or construction management.
Construction, yeah.
Yeah. How did you do that? And why did you do that?
I don't know. I've always been interested in like being a student, because that's what that's my parents' aspiration. Like,
yeah,
like coming here, is
mate.
Like,
it's everyone's
aspiration.
Every immigrant,
right?
first generation. You going to go to university, get some qualification.
Like you just got to work and make a better life for yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in like real estates and property, right? So I've always been into that. My brother was a builder, so. And then I kind of got more interested in that, because again, like the aspiration was always to build a house for yourself, buy your own house, and all those things. So I was like, why not study that? But then, interestingly enough, when I was studying, and when I came to Melbourne, and I worked for an engineering firm for about a year, it was really cool just learning about different projects and what's going on. And I decided to take athletics more seriously. I actually got more interested in business, and I was like, well, like I think business is where I think I might belong. I enjoy that a little bit more. I still enjoy property, but not as much as I would want to work in the construction space. Like I'd do more real estate things like property development and whatnot. But outside of that, like I'll enjoy the business. I enjoy the speaking and going out. So I'm in Sydney this week to do a conference. And I was like, man, I love that. I love going out, sharing my story and impacting hundreds of people.
Like, and do you try to show how your story can actually, or the lessons from your story can be of assistance to people in the business world? Like you're talking to business people?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So all my stories, I guess the most common is like the resilience part of thing. That's before the accusations. Like that's just one of it. Like before that, like finding your place and everything we kind of spoke about here. Being a good leader is really important, because you're put in this position as a leader and you never signed up for it. Like when I did well in Tokyo, it was like everyone kind of looking up to you for leadership. It's like, well,
Tokyo's when you got your fourth.
When I came fourth.
Is that the fastest 800 you've ever run?
No, I ran faster.
What did you run in Tokyo?
44.1. See, I don't even know.
But it was 44 something.
It's 44.1, I think. Yeah.
And you've run what, a second quicker?
around 144.0. So
144.0. So like, a few tenths of a second faster, but that's actually that's quite a bit of distance at the pace you're running.
Yeah.
So and then from there, when you went to Paris, between Tokyo and Paris, you had the drama.
Yeah.
Did that affect your preparation, do you think?
Absolutely. With the whole scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've already didn't have as much passion as I spoke before as everyone else. It was just easier to pull away from it completely.
Right.
It was like this thing that brought you so much joy now is bringing you so much pain. Like, why am I spending my time here?
Yeah.
It's just a no-brainer, like spend less time here. So there was lack of training, lack of interest, and I just didn't want to be around there, right? And at that top stage, you can't be taking a month off, 2 weeks off, no matter what mental state you're in, right? It's good for your mental health, but it's definitely not great for your athletics to take time off.
Yeah.
One is gonna give, and I decided to work on my health more than my athletics, and it just showed in Paris. But I'm grateful that I did it that way, because I think my mental health was more important at that stage.
And how important is it for you to turn up in Paris? Like, I don't mean that in a bad way, but like, actually get there and compete more for Peter.
Yeah.
And also what we think of Peter Bowl.
Yeah.
As Australians, as opposed to sort of saying, look, I know I'm not ready. I'm not going to run a 144 flat.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to turn up because, you probably were the quickest, nonetheless, you're still the quickest in Australia anyway.
Yeah.
In terms of at a national level.
Yeah.
So, you're the dude who's going to has the right to go.
Yeah.
But you're not going to run that same time because you're just not, you don't know. But like in terms of probability, statistically, it's less likely of being successful than it would have been if you hadn't gone through this drama.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to actually turn up?
It was pretty important, and I figured it out pretty late, because I think only a month before that I decided like to stop training. I was like, I don't really want to go there.
Yeah, totally.
I just didn't want to be there. I was like,
stuff it, like,
Yeah, I've always rocked up to a championship, like training the best I could and wanting to be there. It's like when you don't want to be there, it's not fun.
Yeah.
So I think just a month before that, I took some time off. I didn't want to really go there. I went back. I was actually in America. I went back home, and I said, "No." I messaged my coach and manager. I said, "Look, I'm going to make a decision whether I want to be there or not." And then once you get back home and you work through it, it's like maybe it's bigger than that. That's like it's like my third Olympics, and I've worked pretty hard on that. And I think the idea of not being there and the aftermath of it in the future is like, you're not a 3-time Olympian. I was like, oh man, I kind of need to be there for myself. Yeah. Like,
I think you needed to be there for us too,
and I need to be there. Yeah,
I think we needed you to be there.
That supported me, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think that Australians who follow you and follow that particular event needed to see you there. We didn't necessarily expect you. We'd hope you might do a 144 flat or even something less, but I don't think we had that expectation, because I think most people who know anything about sport know that your preparation wouldn't have been proper.
Yeah.
From Tokyo to Paris.
Yeah.
It's just not possible because of the intervention. But we still wanted to see you as our best runner in that event there.
Yeah. And I got so many messages. It was incredible. Like, so many people were like, we can't wait to watch you compete. And even after, I was like, oh, like, I mean, you gave it your best, and keep your head up and all that stuff. So it was like that 50% that you're talking about. I mean, I think some people probably weren't happy that I was there either, but that's fine. Like, I mean, you've got to kind of accept that.
It's an old saying, mate. Fuck the begrudges. but I don't want to leave it on that note, because I actually been getting criticised lately for swearing a bit too much. But a few people pull me up about it. But and I just say, well, bad fucking luck. It's my podcast.
It's my work. I can do whatever I want.
I can do what I want. That's why I do it, so I can say what I want. But no, but I believe that. Stuff them. There will be people who don't believe in you, but it's probably got something more to do with them than it's got to do with you.
Yeah.
And I just think it was wonderful that you did go there and you did do your best, but your best is only going to be as good as your prep.
That
takes us right back to where we started from, your preparation.
Facts.
And but at the same time, you were prepared to take that risk yourself. because that's a risk.
Yeah.
If you know that you're not going to perform your best,
Yeah,
but
that's
you
a
still
massive
perform.
risk. It's a massive risk because also, like we spoke about, like I've obviously prioritized my mental health. That's a massive risk because that can come back down as well at the same time.
You could, and how do you feel after it? So now,
Yeah.
I mean, it's post Paris. I mean,
Yeah.
you feel okay?
Yeah, I feel pretty good. I obviously don't feel good about the performance. Like, absolutely not. Like, that's not the standard I want to be competing at. What I feel good about is like, I think working up the courage to get to that start line.
Yeah.
That's a complete, like the story's completely shifted. The goals completely shifted. The vision's completely shifted. Like 4 years ago when I finished fourth, I was like, the goal was like now the race to try and do one better. If not, try and medal at the next Olympics. And through the interruptions, like, man, let's just try to get there.
But that's our expectations to some extent. Like, and sometimes we have to say as individuals, I just got to do my best, and that takes us right back to what you said about Australians.
Yeah.
We just want you to have a crack.
Just have a crack
and do your best.
Yeah.
But I actually think that is probably the case for most Australians in terms of what they expected from you. They expect you to have a crack.
Have a crack. That's right.
You are our best.
Yeah.
At that event. So, like you went and had a crack. You did your best.
That's it, yeah.
And I think most people, and the purpose of these, having you, for example, on the show today, from my point of view anyway, selfishly, is to say to Australians, this is the dude who did have a crack and did do his best under the circumstances, which, like, I didn't really understand all the circumstances. I mean, I knew one of the circumstances, but generally how you think and how you roll. And the objective of a show like this actually is to, parlay that out to anyone who might want to listen to this.
Yeah.
And there will be 200,000-300,000 people will listen to this.
Yeah.
And which is our normal cadence. So, and I think that's important. And that's why I think shows like this are important. And that's why it takes a lot of courage for you to come onto the show and tell your story so close to, Paris. It's only 3-4 weeks ago. I think people appreciate that in this country. Maybe America's a bit different. There might be harder markers there.
Yeah.
Because as you said earlier, Americans want you to win.
The expectations are different.
Yeah, they're totally different. And then when you sign up for an America, you sign up for that.
Yeah.
If you didn't sign up in Australia, that's not what we ask you to sign up for. And I think Australians just like to see someone who can actually roll through the drama.
Yeah. And
as you said, like, that's real resilience, intellectual resilience, mental resilience, I think. Like standing up on the starting, they're not blocks, whatever you call them, the starting line. There must have been a moment you must have thought to yourself, here I am.
Yeah.
Before which lane were you in?
I was 7.
Yeah, it had to be crossover. 7 is on, which 7 at the 200 you have to cross in. Yeah. You must have been thinking to yourself, wow, what a 4 years I've had since Tokyo. Like, does those thoughts go through your mind, or were you at peace in the moment?
I was actually at peace in the moment. And again, I think if I had the right preparation, it would have been a great Olympic Games. Because to be at peace on the track is always been my goal, and how I compete to the best of my ability. And without the interruption, sometimes I've rocked up to the track without having that peace. So it's like,
you know the difference.
I know the difference. And it was like, yeah, we're healed and we're back, just not under the right circumstances, not under the right conditioning, but in the right mindset.
Do you think you will leave this part of your life with any regrets?
That's a good question. I think definitely yes. Yes, I think I'll definitely have a lot of regrets in the sport. Probably not competing as much as I should have, and not taking advantage of the opportunities in the sport but I'd also leave pretty happy of the life that I built outside of it, and the opportunities that I received through it, and also the person that I've built through it. That's really important, and that I could never take any regret from.
Peter, to be honest with you, it's for 30 years. It's a fabulous story, like actually a wonderful story.
Yeah.
And the way you just summarised it then. That's pretty cool. You've got a backstory which in 30 years' time, when you're 60, you'll think to yourself, wow, what an opportunity for me to experience all those things. I don't mean, the allegations, but the experience of the allegation and being able to deal with it yourself and get through it and still stand at the starting line in the third Olympics and still doing your very best and maintaining your integrity and your family's integrity and being able to get up and talk about it and accepting what's happened.
Yeah.
And not letting it knock you down. That's an amazing story. That's just amazing. And the fact you're sitting here so calm and keeping us in that same lane. You've kept us in the same lane. No, it's about peace, your own peace, your own peace of mind.
Yeah.
Which, mate, most people never achieve it. I'm 68. I'm still chasing peace of mind. People say, oh, you've done all these things for me, but I still don't have peace of mind. I'm still chasing it. I'm still trying to achieve it. And here you are 30, you can still talk about it at the highest level, by the way.
Yeah.
Olympic Games. So, mate, congratulations. Well done.
No, thank you. It means a lot.